Pickle, let's go to the hotline, and let's bring in the play-by-play voice of the Texas Longhorns. You hear him on the Horn in Austin every weekday, and you can also see him on High School Scoreboard live at 11 o'clock Friday nights on Valley Sports Southwest. He's our good friend, Craig Way. Craig, how are you, my friend?
I'm great. You doing okay?
Yeah, we're doing great. Now, did you end up going to the Doobie Brothers?
Did not. We had a few other things pop up that we had to take care of, but we did consider it, and then decided, we better pass on this. Part of it was we knew that this week and next week were really going to be grinds, grinding weeks. So we figured we would catch up with the Doobies at some point.
That feels pretty safe. All right, so we are now into Week 10 of the 2021 Texas high school football season. Down the stretch we come. And a lot of moving parts within districts as far as getting things shaken up. I'm interested in your take on what we saw, especially at the small school level, right? We saw things like Cisco losing to Coleman. We saw Wellington take another loss. We saw Lubbock Roosevelt score the big win over Abernathy. And I think that the real kind of the link between all of those, between Clarendon, between Coleman, and between Lubbock Roosevelt, is this feels like teams that had a shiny record, but we hadn't necessarily seen them play a tough game. Then the tough game arrives, and they end up getting the win. I think Katy Paetow beating Fort Bend Hightower kind of falls into that category as well. I guess my thought is, this deep in the season, is it possible that there's still teams that we don't know how good they
are? Santo?
Yeah, Santo's
maybe?
A good example. Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll find out more about them, right, against Albany this week. Mm-hmm. Because on paper, you have that shiny unbeaten versus unbeaten type of matchup. But the question is, who have you beaten? How did you look when you beat them? Not necessarily if it's lopsided or whatever. Can you make that stand up? I was perusing district standings myself, and I noticed there are a few matchups like that this week where you'd say, hey, that looks like that might be, and then you see what Jerry and the computer are saying about it, and it was like, oh, and then you go and then you dig a little deeper, and then you see the teams that have that one side is beaten as opposed to the other side, and you get a little more of a read too on some of that. And some of the schools you find out had some injuries and stuff. Now I will tell you this: there's some lower classification matchups where schools that had their noses bloodied a little bit now have kind of gotten off the canvas and are ready to go back to punching. I give you Thorndale versus Hearn this week. Mm-hmm. Thorndale got stunned by Thrall, but that's the old Highway 79 rivalry there, and Thorndale can still win the district if they beat Hearn, but that's not a given. And Hearn had beaten Thrall earlier, so there's a matchup I think of lower classification teams that you want. But here's another one for you. See if you agree with me on this: teams with good district records, and we'll find out how good they are overall. In 3A Division II, I think you've got 4 7-1 teams and a pair of head-to-head matchups, 11 3A D2 that you're going to have with Wascom and Elysian Field, and then in 15 3A D2 with Poth and Natalia. So we'll find out. I think all 4 of those teams are 7-1. All 4 of those teams are unbeaten in district play. So this is a prove-it week, I think, for a couple of those teams involved in those matchups.
You mentioned, Santo and Albany. That's one of 5 matchups of unbeatens here in Week 10. And I want to give you 3 of them, and I want to ask you the question that if I had told young Craig Way 10 weeks ago that these 2 teams would be meeting in Week 10 and they would be undefeated, which one of them would shock you the most? Would it be Jersey Village and Houston Stratford in maybe the biggest game at Tully Stadium in a decade? Would it be Ennis and Royce City, or would it be Buda Johnson visiting Dripping Springs, both unbeaten?
Probably the first one, but down in these parts, there's a lot being made about, the fast rise of Buda Johnson. I think folks thought the Drip was going to be good, but to be unbeaten, I don't know. And that's the game that's going to draw the most attention down here this week, with apologies to Cedar Park and Pflugerville Weiss, which is a big game, no question. But when you have two gleaming unbeaten records going head-to-head with a district championship on the line, it's going to draw a little more attention, especially given the fast and rapid rise of Johnson. So that's going to, I think, take a lot of would draw a lot of attention this week in the greater Austin area. Is probably the matchup of the week.
Talking with Craig Way, the Texas High School Football Hall of Famer here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation at #TF Today. All right, Craig, I made a comment the other day, and I think people may be misreading it, and I want to get your take on it. I think Duncanville's a little bit underrated, and I think that there have been a few things that have conspired against them. Most notably that I think District 11 6A is a little bit down. And I think that I think everybody knows the big game that they played, which was their opener against Mater Dei, where they got taken to the woodshed. But since then, they've been kind of doing that Duncanville thing. Is it possible that one of the teams that we presently have ranked number 4 in the state is somehow flying under the radar? And are there any other teams that you think have just been absolutely dominant that people maybe aren't paying enough attention to, even though, hey, look, they're just cruising over people?
It's funny. Normally when that happens, Tep, it's because a team took an early loss, and we kind of set them aside and forget about them for a while. I'll give you another one. Lake Travis is like that. Early loss, but they've been thumping people since that. And it was kind of that way with North Shore, I think. Now, clearly, we're going to find out an awful lot more this week with North Shore and Atascocita. But I am inclined to agree with you at Duncanville, and you know who else is going to agree with you? Jerry Forrest. He's got Duncanville at the top of his computer rankings.
I saw that.
He's got him ahead of South Lake Carroll and ahead of Westlake. So I think Jerry would agree with you as well. And I agree with you also that 11 stays a bit. So they've kind of flown under the radar, which is exactly the way Reggie Samples likes it. At least is in as much as you can fly under the radar when you're number 4 in the statewide ranking, 1 in the computer rankings. But folks aren't talking about it. Kind of like we always say about Carthage every year. We got to forget about them until the playoffs, because we know they're going to blow away this team and that team and this team and that team. And then, okay, you're still going to have to deal with them come playoff time, and you just don't talk about them that much. Well, here's a situation where folks are going to talk about Duncanville once it gets into the postseason, into what we have chronicled, perhaps ad nauseum, that absolutely loaded Division I bracket.
Now's the time of the program where we do mutually assured destruction, where I give Craig an impossible question, and then on Thursday on the Horn, he's going to ask me a similarly impossible question, and then we'll just shake hands at the end of it and wipe our bloodied noses. Craig, I'm going to ask you which of these three games you would teleport to if you could this week in Week 10. Would you teleport to Houston to watch – it's a great week in Houston – to watch North Shore and Atascocita? Would you – let's say, would you go east to go to the aforementioned Wascom and Elysian Fields? Or would you go, I think this game is either, I think it's in Grandview. Grandview taking on West. Which of those three games would you teleport to?
It's going to be Grandview and West, and here's why. I think we know what North Shore and Atascocita have. Mm-hmm. And I think we both know they're going to be extremely difficult to beat come postseason. That's one. I think similarly about Wascom and Elysian Fields. I feel really good about what Wascom's capable of doing. We'll know more certainly about the Yellow Jackets when we get on into the playoffs. But West and Grandview is kind of a little bit fascinating to me, because Grandview, by the way, Tep, falls into that under the radar category that we were talking about. A team that took an earlier loss that folks said, yeah, they're a good team. We'll find out about them. But they're probably, and I think a lot of folks are, and count myself among this, subconsciously guilty of looking at a team that is a perennial power that takes an early loss and I guess they must not be quite as good as they've been in past years, and kind of shove them aside and not think about them as much. And I think the Duncanville thing, your example there was a great example of it. I mentioned Lake Travis, and I think Grandview falls into that same category. We know Grandview's good. How good is West? Mm-hmm. This is where we really find out rubber meeting the road. Yeah, I would be there ready to be astride the Johnson-Hill County line and see Grandview and West.
He's Craig Way. He's a Texas High School Football Hall of Famer. You can hear him on the Horn in Austin every weekday, and you can hear him on the call of Texas and Baylor coming up this Saturday, and on Bally Sports Southwest football, or rather on High School Scoreboard Live at 11 p.m. alongside Rick Renner and myself. Craig, appreciate your time, my friend, and I will see you on Friday.
I leave you with this. How cool is it that Pickle can go out and do her yeoman's work and does a great job like she did in Wimberley last week and like she will do this week in San Antonio, and then turn it into a Llano County weekend, and head home and hang with the fam.
Listen.
Isn't that some kind of niceness?
Yeah, look.
It sure is.
All I will tell you, Craig, she's got a very good agent. Very good agent.
Yeah, somehow that worked out.
That's good stuff. Thanks, Craig. Talk to you soon, pal.
You bet. See y'all.
There he goes. Craig Way, the Texas High School Football Hall of Famer. Joins us every Tuesday here on Texas Football Today.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you would like more and to be notified when they come out, go ahead and click that subscribe button right down there. You can also watch Texas Football Today every day live at noon on TexasFootball.com, Facebook, Twitch, and right here on YouTube. For more of the best coverage of Texas football in the Lone Star State, go to TexasFootball.com/subscribe.